unfortunate.
Yeah, I grew up in the Philadelphia area, so not far from you guys, and I remember hearing that they were going to get about a foot, and I think they got about an inch.
That was kind of where we were.
Well, good. I'm glad that you guys ended up having school, although you guys might not be so happy that you had school today. But I'm glad to be able to get a chance to talk with you guys. You guys know what we're going to talk about today? You can shout it out. Very good. Yes, that is what we're going to talk about today. So this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you can see what I see, which is a presentation that I have with some pretty pictures and stuff with turtles. I think you'll see me in like a little box in the corner. Mm-hmm. And so I'll go through the presentation, and then if you guys have questions, you hold them till the end, and then I'll get through as many questions as we have time for at the end. Sound good?
Very good.
All right. How much time do we have again?
About a half an hour. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay.
No, this is a shorter one, so
okay.
No problem. All right, well, then I'm going to jump right in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I want you guys to tell me when you can see yourselves, because that means it's sharing. It'll probably freeze up for just a brief second, and then you'll see at least a few of yourselves.
Okay. Yes, we're good.
All right, great. So then that goes away. Now the screen should be totally dark.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, that's perfect. So, like your teacher said, my name is Brad, and I work with sea turtles, and I love working with sea turtles. I think I have one of the best jobs in the whole world, but I didn't grow up a big fan of sea turtles. I didn't have a pet turtle. I didn't watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, none of that stuff. So, but I knew that when I went to college, I wanted to do something to help protect animals. And I didn't really know how to do that. I didn't study biology. I'm not a scientist. But so I found a place on the internet, on Google, where I could go and volunteer with the Sea Turtle Project in Costa Rica, which is down in Central America. But I didn't know anything about sea turtles before I went there. So I got there, and I was all excited. I had all this energy. Got an airplane. I flew down. I got to the project. I said, all right, I want to protect some turtles. What do I do? They said, well, you should take a nap because you don't start until midnight, and it's going to be a really long night out on that beach where they come up and lay their eggs. So I said, all right, fine. And I lay down, I took a nap, I got up, and I got dressed in dark clothes. You got to go out to the beach in dark clothes when you're working with turtles, so you know, because the brightness of your clothes can even kind of scare them away a little bit. So got on some dark clothes, went out to the beach, and this is kind of what it looked like. It was totally dark. There were no moon, no stars, no lights from any nearby towns or anything. It was in the middle of nowhere on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. But so we start walking, and I'm really tired, and I don't know, what I'm really getting myself into, and I don't really know what to expect. But up ahead, we just see a tiny little flash of red. And that means that there's some people down the beach, and they've got a red flashlight, and they're signaling us that they've got a turtle, and they want us to come help. So we all got excited and started walking really quickly down the beach. And when we got there, this is what we saw. I know this is kind of a dark picture, but this is probably about a 6 foot long, maybe close to 1,000-pound leatherback sea turtle. And from that moment, I was blown away. I had no idea that turtles got this big. I had no idea that basically a dinosaur, or something that looked like a dinosaur, would be crawling out of the ocean in front of me to lay its eggs, like its species have been doing for 100 million years. And from that moment on, I was absolutely blown away by these animals, and I've worked with them ever since. And like I said, I think I have one of the world's best jobs. I get to travel around to different places around the world. Like I go to Mexico, I go to Cuba, I go to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, to work with these animals and to meet the amazing people that are working to protect them. And sometimes I get to take my daughter along. You can see her in that picture there. She's about your guys' age there. She's in 7th grade now. But she's really lucky. She's gotten to travel around with me a lot too. But, I get to meet these amazing people and see these amazing animals. And, I feel really lucky in my job. So I'm really excited to share with you what I know about sea turtles and what we do to help protect them. So I call the presentation Sea Turtles, Mysteries of the Sea, because, I remember when I was growing up in school, we always thought that scientists knew most about animals and things, and that, maybe they were still studying little things that they were finding out. But you know what? With sea turtles, and especially with other ocean animals, because we don't live in the ocean. We can't be in the ocean all the time to observe them. We don't know a lot about these animals. There's a lot that we do know, but there's a lot of mystery. So I'll talk about what we do know and what we don't know. So we do know that there are 7 species of sea turtles, 7 different kinds of sea turtles that can be found all around the world. The 2 on the far right here are both green turtles. The one on the top is the kind that you would find out by Hawaii, and on the one on the bottom is the kind that you would find down by Florida. The big round one here in the middle, that's the leatherback that I showed you that first picture of. You can see they're by far the biggest of the sea turtles, more than twice as big as the next biggest turtle. Down here on the bottom is a loggerhead. They have really big heads and strong jaws. They also live in the southern, southeastern United States, Florida, South Carolina. They come and nest there. This is the hawksbill turtle. A lot of people think it's the prettiest of the sea turtles. It's one of the smaller ones. They live mostly in coral reefs. The shiny one here, that's the flatback. They pretty much live only out around Australia. And then the 2 on the top, these 2 small ones are closely related. The Kemp's Ridley in this corner, which can be found in the Gulf of Mexico, like around Texas, Florida, Louisiana, and that part of the country. And the olive Ridley can be found all around the world. So those are all the different kinds of sea turtles that you can find in the world. So I want you guys, I can see some of you guys, I want to do a quick question here. Do you guys think sea turtles are reptiles or amphibians? If you think that they are amphibians, raise your hands.
So if you think they're amphibians, raise their hand. 1, 2.
I see a couple of you guys. Okay, how many people think that they are reptiles?
Okay, so that's about 4/5 of our class.
Well, the ones who think they're reptiles are correct. They are reptiles, although it can be confusing because they can live on land and in water like amphibians. But there's a few differences between a reptile and an amphibian. Reptiles have scales. If you think like a snake, they have scales, and you can see the turtle on its face here and its shell. These scutes here are also considered scales. They lay eggs. That's another characteristic of a reptile. They are what's sometimes referred to as cold-blooded, which means that they have to sit in the sun to warm up their bodies. They don't make their own heat in their bodies by eating food like you and I do. And they have to breathe air. Sea turtles have some of this, are similar in some ways to amphibians, but yeah, they're part of the reptile family. So good job. All right, I got another one for you here, and you guys can shout this one out. All right, there are, in very, very general terms, 3 different kinds of turtles that you can find out there. There's sea turtles, there's tortoises, and there's freshwater turtles. And I'm going to show you 3 pictures. When you see the picture, you shout out what you think it is. All right, sea turtle, tortoise, or freshwater turtle.
Sea turtle, tortoise, or freshwater? What do you guys think?
Tortoise.
Tortoise. Yeah, I started with an easy one. Good job. Yeah, this is a tortoise, and you can tell they're different from freshwater turtles and sea turtles in a few ways. One biggest reason maybe is their feet. You see their feet almost look like elephants' feet because they tend to live in dry, rocky land, and they don't really spend time in the water. They have really tall shells because tortoises tend to live in really hot places, and that actually helps keep them cooler. And they have long necks. Not all of them, but a lot of them have long necks. In a lot of cases to reach up and eat vegetation off of bushes, kind of like a giraffe of the turtle family. Good job there. It's going to get a little harder now, though. All right, sea turtle, tortoise, or freshwater turtle? Freshwater. It sounded like most of you guys said freshwater turtle. Very good. I thought I might trick some of you there. Sometimes I can get people with this one, but that's correct. These are freshwater. This is a freshwater turtle. And so the freshwater means that they live in lakes and rivers and ponds and things like that. Sometimes they live on land as well. They kind of go back and forth. You can tell the difference with these guys because their feet are more like flippers to help get them through the water, and they have a much more flat shell. But you can see on the flippers here, they're almost like webbed feet, kind of claws, which helps them walk on land. One of the big differences between these guys and the sea turtles is their size. And it's hard to tell from this picture, but this one can actually fit in the palm of your hand. You know, some of the freshwater turtles, like the big snapping turtles, can get pretty big, but they're still not nearly as big as the smallest sea turtle. So very good. All right, I got one more for you.
Okay. How are we going to do?
Yeah, another easy one. That's right. This is a sea turtle. They've spent just about all of their time in the ocean. So the only time they pretty much ever come up onto land is to lay their eggs. There's some places where some turtles kind of like to hang out on the beach, but it's very, very rare. Only in Hawaii, really, that happens. But yes, they spend pretty much all their time in the ocean. They have flat shells, which help them move through the water a little more quickly. If they had a tall shell like a tortoise, they'd be a lot slower in the water. They have these big, really long front flippers. And you can't tell here, but they also have really strong shoulders because they have to flap those flippers up and down. Basically, they move through the water. It's very similar to the way a bird flies through the air by pushing these flippers up and down, which pushes them forward. But like the other turtles, they always have to breathe air. They can't breathe underwater. Sometimes people think that because they live in the ocean, they can breathe underwater. But just like mammals in the ocean, like whales and dolphins, they have to come to the surface to breathe. So very good job on that little quiz. You guys sound like you know your stuff. So why are sea turtles important? Well, they're important for a lot of reasons. When we talk about pretty much any animal in nature, the things that tend to make it important are what it eats and what eats them, the other animals and plants and things that they interact with in their habitats, in their places where they live. And the sea turtles are very similar, especially when they're little hatchlings. Again, this one can fit in the palm of your hand. This is a tiny little hatchling. Or the eggs. They have so many predators, which is kind of scary for those little turtles, but it also means that a lot of animals depend on them being around, and there being lots of eggs and little hatchlings for part of their food. And that can include domestic animals like dogs and cats. Now, I bet some of you guys had dogs and cats, but it wouldn't be your dogs and cats or people around you. It would be dogs and cats that live in places where the turtles are coming onto the beach and laying their eggs, maybe in places where people don't have enough money to get their animals fixed, so they can't have puppies or kittens, or maybe they don't have enough money to go out and buy lots of dog food or cat food for them. So sometimes they learn that they can go out to the beach and dig up the nests and eat the eggs. Birds love to eat the little hatchlings, especially when they're floating on the water after they get out to the sea, which is kind of sad, but it's like a little snack for some species of birds like pelicans and frigate birds. Fish can eat them. Crabs can eat them as they're making their way from the beach out to the water. Sometimes the crabs will grab them and pull them down into their little holes that they have out on the beach. Flies can eat them. And now you might think, well, how can a fly eat a turtle? Well, so what happens is they can burrow down, dig down into the nest and lay their eggs on top of the turtle eggs, which is it's a little gross, but as those eggs develop, the larvae, they go into the turtle eggs and eat them before they develop into the little hatchlings. Other things, mammals like raccoons can eat them. There's a rainforest animal called a coati, which is very similar to a raccoon, that will also eat them. So sharks will eat them. And in some places, people eat the turtle eggs. Again, this doesn't really happen so much in the United States, but it does happen in other countries. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later. People will eat the eggs, not the hatchlings, but the eggs themselves. But you can see how many different, especially the wild animals that you see here, how many different animals depend on there being a lot of these little turtles to survive. Now, it's estimated that only 1 out of 1,000 of these adorable little hatchlings actually grows all the way up to be an adult, which is a pretty amazing thing. You wonder, well, how are sea turtles still around if so many of the hatchlings get eaten before they can grow up? Well, it's a really good question. I get asked that a lot, and the answer is because sea turtles lay lots and lots and lots of eggs in their lifetime. The mother turtles can lay anywhere from 100 to 200 eggs in just one nest, and they can nest a couple of times a year, and over their lifetimes, they may lay 10,000 or more eggs. So if 1 out of 1,000 eggs makes it into adulthood, or hatchlings makes it to adulthood, then if you're laying 10,000 eggs, at least a few of them will survive, and the population and the turtles will be able to continue living. By the time they're full grown, there's only a few different animals out there that can eat a full grown sea turtle. Can anybody guess, shout it out, what the main predator of a sea turtle
What do you
is?
think? Shark. Did you hear him?
I did not know.
Really loud.
Shark.
Sharks, very good. I gave you guys a big hint. Yeah, this is a drawing. It's not an actual photo, but it's kind of a dramatic way to show the number one predator of the sea turtle, and that's right, the shark. The great white sharks, some of the biggest sharks, are big enough and strong enough to catch a turtle and bite through its shell and eat them. Sharks are a lot faster than sea turtles in the ocean, so it can be hard for a turtle to get away. That shell does help protect them, though. That's why they have such a big, heavy shell on them. But, yeah, the number one thing that turtles have to worry about in the ocean are sharks. And in fact, this is an interesting thing I always like to share. I know a lot of people have a fear of sharks. You know what? People are not the normal prey, the normal food of a shark. And in fact, you've probably heard about people surfing that very, very rarely, but occasionally get attacked by a shark. Well, if you picture yourself as a shark and you're swimming through the ocean and you look up and you see somebody sitting on a surfboard with their hands and their feet in the water, guess what that looks like from underneath?
What do you think? If you know, say it.
It looks like a turtle, yeah, because the surfboard is somewhat shaped like the underside of the turtle, and your arms and legs can look like the turtle's flippers. So we think that it's actually mistaken identity, that sharks actually think that they're getting a turtle when they try to bite people on surfboards. So there's only a couple of other things that will eat sea turtles. Orcas occasionally have been known to eat a sea turtle. Occasionally a crocodile will grab one when they're just crawling out of the water onto the beach. And in some places, jaguars will come out of the ocean, come out of the rainforest. The turtles come out of the ocean, the jaguars come out of the rainforest, and they're both on the beach sometimes. And so the turtle, especially on the beach, they're super slow. And so the jaguar can easily get them and eat them. So that doesn't happen a lot either. The other thing is that in some places people still eat turtles, the meat of the sea turtles. Again, it doesn't happen very much anymore. In most places it's not allowed, but it still does happen a little bit. So the other reason that sea turtles are important are for what they eat, or at least one of the other reasons, for what they eat. Because the things that they eat, they help control the numbers of. Because the number one food of a sea turtle is the jellyfish. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been stung by a jellyfish before, but I have, and it's not fun. It's not the end of the world, at least depending upon what kind. It's kind of like a bee sting. But sea turtles are one of the only animals in the ocean that eat jellyfish because their immune sting. Their throats and their stomachs are sort of armor plated so that they don't feel it. And those big leatherbacks that I was talking about, those giant turtles, they can eat twice their weight in jellyfish a day when they are feeding. Imagine that's over 1,000 pounds of jellyfish every day. It sounds delicious, huh? I bet you guys just had lunch. So if there weren't sea turtles around, there would be a lot more jellyfish in the ocean. So by the sea turtles eating lots of jellyfish, they help keep the numbers in control so that there are not too many of them. Other turtles, like those loggerheads, like to eat crabs. Remember I said they have big, strong jaws. They can eat things with shells like crabs and lobsters and stuff like that. Some, like the green turtle, are actually herbivores, sort of vegetarians of the sea turtle family, and they'll eat seagrass. They'll kind of graze on it like a cow. Occasionally a turtle will eat a fish, although fish are usually a little faster, so it can be hard for a turtle to catch a fish, but sometimes they'll eat them. And some, like this really pretty hawksbill here, that's what this picture is a hawksbill sea turtle in a coral reef. They will eat sponges. Now, not like the sponges that you have at home in your kitchen to wash the dishes, but they're called sea sponges, and they live in coral reefs, and they're actually made mostly out of glass. So just like the turtles that aren't affected by the sting of the jellyfish, these hawksbills have actually developed over millions of years to be able to eat basically glass and to be able to digest it and not be injured by it. So that's the basics of sea turtles. So sea turtles are threatened. Some of you guys may have heard the word endangered before, and you may have an idea of what it means, but just real roughly, it means that there's a lot fewer than there used to be before they started having problems from people, and that if their numbers keep dropping, that they can disappear. So no sea turtles have gone extinct, have disappeared from the earth since people have come around. But a lot of the species of sea turtles, in fact, 6 out of the 7, are in some way endangered, some more than others. And there's a few reasons for that. So one of the biggest reasons that some sea turtles are endangered is because of fishing gear. Because sea turtles, with the animals that they eat, are sometimes in the same places where boats trying to catch seafood are. And so they can get caught on lines. So this picture here is a turtle caught on a hook that had some bait on it. The turtle wanted to eat the bait and it got caught. They can also get caught in nets as well and other kinds of fishing. And if they can't get up to the surface to breathe, if no one comes in and lets them off the hook or out of the net, or if they don't have a way to get out of the net, they can drown in the water. So another big reason that sea turtles are endangered, I mentioned this a little bit before, but in some places, people eat the eggs. That happens mostly in places like in Central America, Africa, Asia, where eating turtle eggs, people have been doing it for a long time. It might seem like a weird thing to you and me, but in a lot of these places, people's great-grandparents, grandparents, parents ate them. So, it's a part of their diet growing up. And in some places where people don't make very much money, they might only make maybe $100 or $200 in a whole month. People can make $50 by selling these eggs to a restaurant or something. It can be a way for people to feed their families when they might not have very many other options. So it seems really sad, and I know my first reaction was, oh, these people are bad. Well, I've learned after working with turtles and people who live around turtles for a long time that we can't judge people. We can't say that they're good or bad. We don't know what we would do in their situation. I know that if I lived in a place where I didn't make much money and I needed money to be able to feed my family, I would probably sell turtle eggs too. But what we try to do is help educate people so that they realize that turtles are endangered. They might not even know. And we try to help people find ways of surviving and making money without hurting the turtles or other animals. So another thing that's affecting sea turtles right now is plastic in the ocean. So remember how I said that jellyfish are the favorite food of a sea turtle? Well, sea turtles are wonderful animals, and they're really great and charismatic and beautiful, and I love them. But they're not very smart. They've got really, really tiny little brains, and they haven't developed over millions of years to be able to recognize and tell the difference between a plastic bag and a jellyfish. So they see a plastic bag floating through the ocean. To a turtle, it looks like a jellyfish, and they can eat them. And if they eat too many of them, it can really, really hurt them. So this is a big problem. We're finding more and more ocean plastic in the ocean all the time. So that's kind of the sad part of the presentation. But you know what? I'm really hopeful. I'm really optimistic that turtles are going to be around for a long time. And I am, because I go around to a lot of places in the world and see amazing things being done to protect them. And there's really a lot of good news out there. There's a lot of places where sea turtles are coming back, and there are more and more of them all the time. One of the things that's helped protecting the turtles from the fishing gear is this thing. It's called a turtle excluder device, which is a technical, complicated-sounding name for something that's really simple. It's basically an escape hatch in the bottom of a net. This is a net that catches shrimp. And so those little pink things that you see there are shrimp. And so the turtle comes through the net, and it hits this metal grate, and it can escape out a hole in the bottom while the shrimp are small enough to pass through. And now every fishing boat, every shrimp boat in the U.S. needs to use these, and this has helped save the lives of lots and lots of turtles. So another way that we're learning to fill in some of the gaps and some of the mysteries of the turtles, the things that we don't know, is by using technology. And one of the technologies that we can use is gluing a transmitter, a satellite transmitter, onto the back of their shell. And that transmitter sends a signal to satellites up in space, and then that tells us on the computer, we can watch where that turtle goes. And that helps tell us where they are and how they act. And that's really helping us learn where we need to protect them and learning about their lives, things that we didn't know before. So one of the best things that we've learned about working with sea turtles over about 50 years or so that people have been working with them is that when we protect those beaches where they lay their eggs, 15, 20, 25 years later, when those hatchlings grow up and start coming back, their numbers can grow again. And we're seeing a lot of places around the world where their numbers are going up. So the leatherback turtle, there used to be very, very few of them in the Caribbean, and now their numbers have more than doubled over the past 10 years. And they're not as endangered as they used to be. And that's the same with another kind of turtle, the Kemp's Ridley. At one point, there were only 200 of the Kemp's Ridley turtles on the whole planet. That's probably fewer than the amount of kids in your school. Well, people have been protecting them by protecting their beaches and keeping them out of fishing nets for the last 20 years, and now there's more than 10,000 of them. So from 200 to 10,000 is really, really great news. And that's a result of the work of hundreds of people trying to protect these animals. So there's some really great stuff out there. So I don't want you guys to think that turtles are going to be gone soon from Earth. It's really, there's some really good things happening. So I'm going to wrap up here really quickly. A couple of things that you guys can do. Now, you guys might think, well, here in York, we're, so far from the ocean. What can we do? Well, you know what? There are things that you can do. One thing that we recommend to people is help us keep as much plastic out of the ocean as we can. And so even as far inland as York, if you were to accidentally drop a plastic bag, it can blow into a creek, which can end up in a river and go all the way out to the ocean. And there are sea turtles. Those big leatherbacks travel right off the coast of New Jersey going up to Alaska. And so if the more the plastic ends up out in the ocean in New Jersey, from Pennsylvania, from New Jersey, from inland, then, the more hazards, the more plastic is that they might meet. So there are volunteer events where you can help clean up lakes and rivers and stuff nearby. So that's always a fun thing. It might not seem like fun cleaning up trash, but when you have a big pile of stuff that you've gotten out of nature, it's a really, really good feeling. But, what I try to do with my family is whenever we go out to the ocean or a lake or a river or the woods, we always try to leave it a little bit cleaner than when we got there by picking up some trash and putting it in the place where it's supposed to be. Now, you never want to pick up anything that could be dangerous, rusty, sharp, gross, anything like that. Ask your parents first and wash your hands afterwards for sure. But if everybody took a little bit of trash out of nature every time they went out, then we would have a lot less trash in the ocean and on land that would affect lots of animals. So to wrap up here, the other thing I highly recommend, if you ever get to a place where there are sea turtles, like in Florida or Hawaii, Mexico, try to go see them either laying their eggs or out in the water, because they're really, really amazing animals. And when you see them out in the water, it's a really cool, fun thing for you. And it can help convince the people that live in those places that they're really important to protect, and because people will travel to see them and spend their money in their communities. So anyway, that's the end of my presentation. I am going to bring myself back here, and we can answer as many questions as you guys have time for. So give me 1 second. Start raising your hands if you have questions.
William?
And Ms. Musone can call on you when ready.
Okay.
All right, I'm back. Hi.
Hi there. So this is William.
Hi.
I was wondering what happens if there's a sea turtle in the ocean that has one of the cameras on its back and a shark eats it. What happens to the camera when you're tracking it on the computer?
That's a really good question. Yeah, we do sometimes put cameras on them or transmitters or things like that. You might have seen National Geographic will attach they call them critter cams to the shells, things like that. Usually with a camera, because they're very expensive, they will have a way that they can unhook and float up to the surface if the turtle gets attacked. Nothing's really big enough. Well, there are things big enough, but nothing will really swallow a turtle in whole. So usually a camera will detach or some way float up to the surface, and then it emits a little signal so that it can go and be picked up. with those transmitters, usually we don't find them again. They have batteries that can last anywhere from a couple of months to a little over a year. But we rarely see those turtles again when we put those transmitters on their back. So those are usually lost. And now I guess they could be swallowed by an animal. They would probably spit it back out if they could. It probably wouldn't be very good for a shark to eat a satellite transmitter or a camera. But in most cases, if they don't detach, the transmitters don't detach. They're glued on there like the best super glue you can imagine. But they're usually broken or lost. Yeah. It's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before.
There's always a first. Katie? And then we'll get you, okay, Ruby? Yeah. Okay. Want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Katie. And when I found a turtle in my backyard, it had a red strip under his neck. And my family and I were wondering what kind of turtle was that.
The red strip, was it like natural coloring, or was it like painted or something?
It looked like it was just regular and it wasn't painted.
Well, that can be hard to guess. I mean, there's a number of different kinds of turtles. There are painted turtles, which you can tell because they're not actually painted, but around the bottom of the shell, it has some really bright coloring. There are some that have red lines behind its ears. Those are called red-eared sliders, and they're usually pets that somebody lets go out into the wild. But it's hard to tell. It's hard for me to know exactly without a picture of it. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. William wanted to show you what he made in art class yesterday, and then Ruby has a question.
In our class, I made this sea
Turn it
turtle.
sideways so you can see it. Because you can just.
Oh, that is awesome! Wow, very good. It's the exact right size and everything. Great job.
Except for the tail.
Yeah, no,
That's
the tails don't look quite like that. That looks more like a chameleon kind of tail. But no, it's really, really neat. I like it. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure.
Ruby had a question, and then Ella B, and then I think that was it. Okay. Ruby?
Like, what happens if the turtle gets attacked and then, like, what would you do if the camera got lost off the turtle?
Okay. Now remember, she said that they would float up to the top if they had a camera. Did you have another question? Okay. What's your other question?
One time at an aquarium, I saw this big turtle. I was wondering what kind of turtle it was. It was like really big.
It probably would have been a green turtle. What aquarium was it? Do you remember? Was the one in Camden or New Jersey or Baltimore?
Was it the one in Baltimore?
Yeah.
Did it have just one flipper, one front flipper? Yeah, I've seen that one too. I was in Baltimore not too long ago. That one is a green turtle. So that one being injured, they can't release it out to the ocean because it wouldn't be able to get away from the other animals because it only has that one flipper. Yeah. So sometimes turtles are kept in captivity because they don't know how to survive or they're too injured to release out into the wild. Yeah. Yeah.
And we have Ella B. And then we have to be mindful of his time, too. Okay, go ahead, Ella B.
One time at my grandma's house.
A question or a comment?
It was a question.
Okay, go ahead.
At my grandma's house, we saw a snapping turtle, and my mom and my grandma started poking it with a stick. And I was wondering, do the snapping turtles like that when they get poked in the stick with a stick?
Well, would you like to get poked with a stick?
No.
Probably not. No, probably not. And snapping turtles can be quite aggressive, and they have really, really strong jaws. So I don't know how far you were away from it, but they could take a finger off if you were close to it. So, with any kind of animal out in the wild, it's probably best just to leave it be because it can be a little stressful. I doubt they hurted it or anything, but it probably didn't enjoy that very much. But
How about we take one more? You can choose, Alice. Quickly. Okay. Want to introduce yourself, young lady?
I'm Juliana.
Really loud.
I'm Juliana, and I was wondering how big was the turtle you've ever seen?
Okay. So what the biggest turtle you ever saw?
Biggest turtle I ever saw was one of those leatherbacks that I was talking about. And so we did the measurements in metrics. So let me do some quick conversions here. It was probably about 6.5 feet long, which is, about like the size of like a professional basketball player. And that was just its shell. And they have really big heads. So from its head all the way to the end of its tail was probably close to 8 feet long, which is pretty big. Although the biggest leatherback ever found is about 12 feet long and weighed about 2,000 pounds, which seems almost more like a whale than a sea turtle. They don't get quite that big anymore. At least we haven't found one that big in a long time, but they can get quite big, yeah.
He must have eaten lots of jellyfish.
They have to eat lots of jellyfish because those things don't have a lot of nutrients. They don't have a lot of vitamins in jellyfish, so that's why they have to eat so many of them. But they build up their fat that way from eating so many of those things.
Mr. Brad, this has been absolutely wonderful. We really appreciate it.
Well, it was my pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something.
Would it be okay for us to post the call on our website so their families can see it and such?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That would be great. So yeah. Any other questions come up? Feel free to ask Miss Musson and I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
You are. You're doing. Yep.
Okay, good. And she can email me, and I'd be happy to answer some more. But otherwise, have a great day. I hope you guys got enough snow to at least do a little bit of sledding, maybe.
Yeah. Little bit. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's give him a thumbs up. Say thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.